Yes, I'm here with Emma Burley, Marketing Director at a Essex marketing agency. How are you doing, Emma?
I'm good, thank you.
How are you coping with this current situation? Being a mum, being a worker, are you exhausted?
Yeah, I'd say I'm exhausted 98% of the time. Been really enjoying the nice weather, but just juggling everything has been a challenge.
Yeah.
My job and the remits of my current job have changed very much with the new coronavirus situation, presenting a whole heap of new challenges on top of just managing everything in the house. So it's been a very steep learning curve. But yeah, we're all getting on fine. We're all healthy, and that's the main thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, once we come out the other side of this, I'm sure we'll all have a new appreciation for everything that's really important. So, yeah, we're okay.
So you working full-time from home, or sort of your normal hours, basically?
My normal hours, from home. I'm starting at sort of 4:30, 5 a.m. just to get a few hours under my belt before the house wakes. And then it's just a case of monitoring emails and responding to requests as and when they come in more than anything. So I tend to set aside a certain amount of time in the morning to just get my copy written or do a bit of strategy or anything that requires a block of attention. And then the rest of it is just kind of dipping in and out as and when I can. So, yeah, it's a new way of working, that's for sure.
Yeah. I don't think I realised how hard it was to juggle working from home whilst having kids around. And this isn't going to be specific to everybody, but I guess everybody's dealing with working from home and trying to sort of juggle their normal life with their partners or whatever.
Yeah, I think the challenge that we've had, I mean, I'm quite used to working from home anyway. I've always had that as an element of my working life because it's been important to me to be around as a mum and being single for quite a while. But it's actually having two people trying to juggle working from home from within one space, and then how that looks in the family dynamic of, you know, who's doing what and who's doing the homeschooling and then who's looking after the baby. It is it's very challenging, but as I say, it's precious family time that we wouldn't otherwise have. So we're trying to look at it that way. It doesn't always feel like that, don't get me wrong, but we're very lucky really. We've got a nice house, we've got a big garden, can't ask for much more, and the weather's been pretty good, so yeah, it's been all right.
You've got a foosball table, but
we've got a foosball table covered in junk.
That leads to some intense games, if I remember rightly, from what you and your partner
fairly
play
competitive.
Like.
And the children are equally competitive, so it's a savage arena, if nothing else.
I suppose, to add some background, so we worked together for, I guess, about a year, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And we've kind of kept in touch. I like to see myself as your mentor in a way. Or maybe we're mutual mentors.
Yeah, buddies.
Yeah. Buddies.
The buddy scheme. You are not my mentor.
But I think because I've found this over my career, it's always good to try and not burn bridges with people and actually make an effort to keep in touch with people that you get on with in marketing. I guess in the workplace in general, but specifically in marketing, because you never know when your paths are gonna cross, or you might be able to mutually help each other out, and even just give each other advice and stuff. So I think that's been good. Yeah,
as I say, we worked really well together. It was difficult to make that decision to separate that partnership, but at the same time, you know, we have kept in touch with good reason. We've got very different playing fields in which we work now, and I like to think that we can kind of bounce off one another when we are presented with challenges that the other might be more comfortable with dealing with. So it's worked really nicely, and hopefully long may it continue. Buddy.
Well, and it means I've been able to rope you into doing this as my first guest on the Marketing Minefield Podcast.
Marketing Minefield Podcast. Premiere.
Yeah, the Marketing Minefield thing, it's... First of all, I thought, that's kind of catchy. That sort of sounds quirky. But actually, marketing is a minefield in various ways. There's so many options of channels and tools and courses to do to even get into marketing in the first place, and I think it is a minefield, I guess, for anybody that's thinking of getting in it. But even when you're working in it, it's a minefield. You never know what kind of company you're going to work for in terms of like, how do they feel about marketing? Do they get it? Do they support it financially, and kind of do they support it creatively? It does seem like a minefield. I guess a lot of industries are.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say even when you're well established within a role, day to day, it's a minefield because you've also got to manage client expectations. I'd say that's probably one of the biggest day-to-day challenges that I find now that I'm more comfortable with my role within marketing, my own expectations within my role, it's then managing other people's that have a kind of lesser understanding or have grand ideas that are just not kind of viable, and you have to then kind of bring them back down to earth. That's the difficult thing that I find. And similarly, it's such a busy space. You know, I work predominantly in the digital space, and it's knowing where to attribute within my role, sometimes quite restricted budget, how to get the most out of that budget with such a variety of different channels and options and even combinations of channels available. So, yeah, it is a minefield. I think that's a good way of describing the field in which we work, but also kind of the grander job role. You know, whether you are a digital marketer, whether you are a marketing assistant, or all the way through to a copywriter, you're never ever going to hit the nail on the head first time. And that's why you are going in eyes wide open into that minefield all the time. And it's having a way of working that also enables you to become quite thick-skinned as well. And as I think, as you climb the ranks, that becomes more and more important, because within my job roles, I've always had people either above me or around me that have helped guide me through the next process or take me on to the next stage of a campaign or even a strategy. But now, once you get towards the top, you're the one that's supposed to be guiding everybody else through that process. And the first time you start doing that, that in itself is a whole new experience. So, yeah, the whole stepping up through the career, I don't know whether there will ever be a point where anyone within the marketing field is always entirely comfortable with everything they're doing. And if they are, I'd love to meet them.
Yeah, there's two things there that I think we could talk about. The thick skin thing, which I'll come back to. I feel like I could talk about that for ages, because I think I have potentially had a thin skin in the past working in marketing and been maybe a bit protective of...
A bit precious,
A bit precious of my ideas. And I think it's like that. I think if you work in a creative job, you naturally are creative and you're coming up with ideas, and you maybe get attached to your own ideas. And it makes you maybe more sensitive and more thin-skinned. So you do have to really train yourself to develop a thicker skin. And also that you mentioned about kind of being more of a leader and having to oversee things and help people. So I've made a note to come back to those. First of all, I want to just talk about how did you get into marketing, and particularly I think because it's interesting because I know that you started in kind of the journalism side and the communications side, and communications and marketing are something that they often go together, but they are also sort of two separate career paths. I've got friends that work in communications, I've got friends that work in marketing. So yeah, tell us a bit about how you kind of started and ended up in marketing.
Yeah, so I'm a trained journalist. I did a degree in English and did a master's in journalism, and worked on quite a lot of print publications, a lot of consumer print publications, lifestyle magazines. But as that space started to close down, and so my job, for example, folded because there wasn't a print magazine anymore and everything went online. So kind of forced to think outside the box with the path that I was supposed to take. I had a career break to have my children. And after that, I decided to try and pursue journalism again from a print angle, and it just wasn't really working. So I started to move online with my copywriting and became like a digital copywriter. And from there, I started to pursue an interest in kind of engagement levels, content strategy, and messaging, and kind of the power of different sort of split testing and using different platforms and different messaging across different channels. And I found that really floated my boat way more than just churning out content. So from there, I started to devise different content strategies for different channels, started to open up some social media channels for print publications, and helped several businesses move those print publications online, something that I'm still currently doing for a client at the moment. Actually, it's a really interesting process to try and change the behaviour of your normal readership and explore new readership. So that's really interesting. Yeah. But that kind of organically became a digital marketing role, in that I started to work for a range of other companies that had a stronger focus on digital return on investment, where we would be applying that budget, and how we could get the most out of the content, not just the content, but the budget and also the strategy that came around it with regards to the creative. So it kind of spilled out and over gradually. And as it started to spill over, I started to pick up more skills on the job, but also with additional training in digital marketing as well. So in my current role, I came into that role as a digital marketing manager because of the skills that I'd accrued that I could bring to the table in the business to business sector. And that's now evolved into a marketing director role because I feel that I am able to bring to the table my foundations in journalism, my regard for messaging, for good content, with this kind of overarching eye for strategy, data-driven insights as well, which I massively thrive on, and just combine all of those skills to give my team a good basis to explore a whole range of different channels, both online and offline. So that's where I am at the moment.
So, because when we met and worked together, you were, I guess, predominantly concentrating on communications and copywriting and content production, I guess.
Yeah.
And I was more focused on marketing, and that's how we kind of worked together. Did you always know that you wanted to get back into marketing being the predominant part of the role?
Yeah, I don't know that I wanted it. I think it's just the way things progressed and I've embraced it. I think the nature of my current role has commanded me to very much work across the two disciplines, with communications at the heart of everything I do from a marketing perspective. So in my current role, they very much work hand in hand. We have a lot of inbound messaging. We also have a lot of membership organisations that we work for that want to connect and engage with very specific core member groups. So the communication side is extremely intrinsic and important to everything I do from a marketing angle. And to have those two skills, I think, has meant that we've had a lot of success across a lot of engagement campaigns because of an understanding of messaging and the power of content and getting that right, with a view to also hitting it at the right place at the right time. So that's kind of how I see my role and how I combine those two skills. I have a massive passion for communications. I don't think that's ever going to go because that's my foundation. That's what gets me up in the morning. But the marketing angle I do find incredibly satisfying because you get to see the end result. You get to see those metrics coming into play. And you also get to have the power to change the messaging and the communications as well. So it's a lot, and it's a lot to combine the two, but I don't think that you can entirely separate them either.
No, I agree. And I don't know whether, the next generation of marketers are gonna, I guess the next generation are sort of digital first and then everything else.
I think we're going to lose, as much as I would hate this to happen, I think we're going to lose a whole generation of people that rely on traditional communications, messaging and instinct in the hands of automation. And I don't think you can replace that human interaction element with machine learning. I think that it has its place, absolutely, particularly when we're looking for quick gratification messages, when we're looking to split test, when we're looking to get data quickly. But there is so much to be said for developing a core communication strategy based on a combination of user feedback and data. So I really hope that the next generation of marketers have a strong understanding of the importance of asking people what they think, of listening to people and engaging with your core customer base rather than relying on data all the time. And I would really hope that there will be a continuation of stressing the importance of that, because not only does it work to give you information, but it massively works to make your customer base feel valued. Whether you're working with a core group of a membership, for example, or you're working to sell chocolate bars, by simply creating that social proof and gathering that personal feedback and therefore promoting it on your channels, you're creating an incredible rapport with your consumer that I really hope doesn't get lost. And I'm sure it won't, because I'm sure, the majority of marketers can see the value in doing that. But you can't gain that from, chatbots. And because they're not authentic, people don't respond to them. Whereas if you pick up the phone or you email somebody personally, you're going to get a genuine response. And I think those genuine responses should continue to form the basis of the majority of our campaigns that we still continue to do.
Yeah. And I guess a lot of the time, the next generation of marketers will be managed by our generation. So hopefully there will
Good
still be
luck.
some of that traditional stuff. There is some of that traditional stuff still being taught. But marketing in 100 years is going to be completely different.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It might actually go full circle though. Like all of these things, I think we've almost reached. I should be cautious saying this, but we've almost reached a limit with what automation can deliver, in terms of creating a personal experience, in terms of identifying individual users, and with data restrictions on us anyway. There's only so far that we can push that. So actually, it would be nice to see things come full circle. It would be nice to see people appreciate traditional communications. We're already seeing a rise again of direct mail.
Yeah.
People are starting to pick up on that being a new trend that's coming back. I think people are losing faith in a lot of core social media channels, seeing them as purely marketing platforms. I know Facebook is very much declining in the trust that it instills in its user. Yeah. And that the same will happen across the board, and we'll just have to see how it goes. But as I say, I really hope there becomes another core, that there becomes again a value in good content, whether that's online or offline, and good messaging.
Yeah, I think particularly now with the situation that the world is in right now, content marketing is going to sort of have a boom, because it's the only way people are going to, not the only way, but it's a big way that people are going to be able to keep people engaged, where businesses and customers are maybe apprehensive to spend right now. The way to keep people engaged is going to be good content and good insights and keeping people engaged with good information, I think, rather than constantly sell, try and get people to buy.
That's it. It's about building trust at the moment. Obviously, it depends on which field you're selling within or what it is that you're promoting. But it's about providing value and authenticity, particularly at the moment, but in general as well. And good content is a good place to start. It's finding ways to upskill potentially your consumer or upskill your readership, and doing that in a way that's kind of approachable, understandable, but obviously without overskilling them so that they don't need your services anymore. So there's a fine line, but it's an interesting arena in which we're working at the moment. I think daily I'm coming across new challenges as to how to add value for our members and add value to the offering that we're giving online, whether that be in the form of content or offerings in terms of giving people out toolkits or means to communicate with their own user base, cascading engagement from the top. That's how we're looking at it at the moment, but obviously not charging for it, with a hope that when all of this is resolved, they'll remember that we worked hard for them during this time and they'll keep coming back to us. And I think that's how we have to look at it. We have to continue to work for our customer base and for our clients. We have to make sure that they understand that we are here to support them, and with a view to obviously continuing to support them through this and out the other end, to provide them with kind of a future-proof means of relaunching their businesses and continuing to grow once this pandemic is over. Yeah. So it's an interesting situation, and one that I won't forget anytime shortly.
No, you could say that it's the perfect time for content such as the Marketing Minefield podcast.
I make you right.
So what do you love about being a marketer, working in marketing? What sort of big thing do you love about it? Or several little things? Well,
I was going to say it's more about the little things. So I think it's always a good day if you have a little fist bump. You see something that you took a punt on, or an educated guess on come off, or even if you have, and these are going to happen, moments where things don't work, it's being able to learn from them, impart that knowledge with your team, and kind of build on it to get it right the next time. I think the beauty of working predominantly in a digital space is you can very much confine your errors. So, whereas surgeons, for example, can't afford to get stuff wrong, we do have the luxury of being able to experiment a little bit with what we're doing. Yeah. So much of what we do is unknown, particularly as your user base is changing daily, the platforms they're using are changing daily, and the environment in which we're marketing in is changing by the second. We're able to have a bit of a play with things, to be able to kind of determine that sweet spot. Yeah. So I think that's really an interesting part of what we do. I think on the flip side, that does come with the whole minefield concept of there is so much at our expense. There's so much available to kind of experiment with and try things out on, that it's impossible to know always that you're going entirely in the right direction. I think I very much enjoy combining data with content, just to be able to know that our audience are in this place, they're interacting at this time, but then how do we talk to them best, and apply those two sides of theory and putting those into practice to hopefully get that response. So that's really interesting. I think the difficulty is when, and this is something I'll say about my job and has always been the case, is the time constraints in being able to really get granular with that data and have a really deep understanding of why certain things worked. The time just isn't there. And if it were there, the work wouldn't be there. So it's also that, it's striking that balance between that kind of post-mortem of a campaign versus getting on with the next one. And dedicating enough time to get enough understanding of your data and enough understanding of your user without becoming immersed in it as well. So yeah, as I say, it's a daily challenge to strike all of these balances right, and that's what I enjoy about it, because you do, in my role, get to take ownership of your work. You get to take ownership of what you prioritise and how you want to behave as a marketer. And you're answerable to your clients, but ultimately answerable to yourself, because the gratification that you gain are those fist bump moments where you get stuff right. So yeah, it's a privileged position to be in. Yeah,
definitely. I think I've always said about marketing and what we do is that it is different. Almost every day is different. I guess depending what kind of company you work for. Where I've worked, I've tended to work for groups of, so a company which has kind of several companies within it, which helps me get the variety that I want. It won't always be like that, and actually I started my career in NHS, which there wasn't as much variety to it. But even within health and public health, there was all the different aspects. There was to stop smoking and healthy eating and exercise and things. So I guess I've always lent towards roles that have that variety. But I think even if you don't work for a group of companies, I think the whole marketing minefield, there is so many options of things to try and to test and to research and to learn. I think it does keep it kind of fresh and exciting, and I guess that's why most of us do it.
Yeah, I definitely. I don't think I've ever met an introverted marketeer, let's put it that way. We like those moments that we can tell everybody about. And I'm sure that there is a fair amount of ego amidst our community, as it were.
Do you think?
Yeah, I do. And I know that a lot of people that I've come across that work alongside me in marketing are extremely proud of the fact that they work in marketing, despite the fact that actually, and you touched on this before, a lot of people in the wider workspace don't understand or necessarily appreciate the value of the marketing team. So I think it's important that we continue to be proud of the work that we do. We don't necessarily get the same reward that a sales team would get in terms of hitting their targets, but we supply those leads, we supply those opportunities, and we need to continue to recognise that we hold an incredible amount of importance in keeping our businesses or our clients going, whether it be from a brand awareness perspective. You know, we may not necessarily get an instant return on that, but remembering that throughout that funnel, that will ultimately convert into either sales or engagement, and all of those things are extremely important in keeping businesses and clients thriving. So it's about always remembering that even if we're not getting those immediate little wins in the same way that a sales team would get, or a development team would get, you know, hooray, this works, congratulations, we actually have an extremely important role in that process of converting a product into a sale. So it's just remembering that all the time.
Yeah. Actually, to go back to what you said, I think that's interesting, the introvert-extrovert thing, because I would say that in life, I am an introvert naturally, but I think maybe working in marketing and maybe feeling the need to remind people, hi, yeah, we're here, marketing team are here, we can actually do some quite good stuff if you give us the chance. I think maybe I've become accustomed to shouting about the things I do against my nature, against my kind of introverted nature, and maybe that's why I'm doing things like this, as well as to kind of, this is something I've wanted to do for a while, but and not had the time, whereas now we've got a bit more time at home. But maybe all of this is part of that reminding people marketing is important, and we know our stuff. It's just we need to have some freedom sometimes to do things like this, I guess.
Yeah, I think as well, there are all too many people that are cynical about the importance of marketing, and I don't know where that comes from. I don't know if they've had their fingers burnt in the past. I don't know if it's just a general lack of understanding of everything that we do. But when you look across the marketing mix and you look at the range of disciplines that our job roles have to encompass, whether it be our whole team or individuals, you know, some people work across the marketing mix, some people work in very specific disciplines. I appreciate that. Yeah. But with that whole scope that we have to take into account, you know, you can't have a pay-per-click account manager not having a broader knowledge of SEO and content, and you can't have a social media marketer not have an understanding of direct mail or email marketing, because we have to all be able to take into account that grander scheme and that bigger picture to be able to get our specific job role right. So I think a lot of marketeers aren't given enough credit for the scope and range of knowledge that they have to take to their job every single day. And not even just to their job. It's like, I don't remember a time since graduating that I haven't sat on a train and not analysed an advert, or haven't read a news piece and thought, I'd have written that a bit differently. Yeah. Even down to some of the stuff that's going on now with the kind of messaging around coronavirus. It massively ignites a flame in me about messaging. And I see so many best practice methods being implemented because it's the only way to get these kind of communications out, that it's reigniting a flame in me about communications. It's so fascinating how the NHS in particular and the UK government are talking to us at the moment. And it's making me reinvestigate some of the means in which I'm talking to my clients, or I'm talking to their clients on behalf of them. Yeah. So it's about being able as well to engulf yourself and immerse yourself in content and marketing and advertising all day, every day. And that's something that somebody that doesn't necessarily work within that remit can appreciate.
Yeah, you can't switch off. You're constantly looking and reading, and even watching the government updates on coronavirus. They hammer home their key messages of the stay home, save the NHS, stay home, protect the NHS, save lives. They've obviously been told these are our key points. Get those across as much as possible, and you just see
know that you can see the meeting unfolding in the background, can't you? Because you understand the process.
Yeah, their comms manager or whatever saying, right, these are the key points. Everybody needs to hammer this home as much as possible. They've constantly kind of switched up the color of the, I guess like a placard or whatever you call it in front of the, to keep you looking at that.
And you can see when things are getting more crucial or more critical, they'll bring in the yellow or black.
Yeah.
And it's just seeing that migration of colour as well, and not being able to just see it for what it is, but have an understanding as to why they're doing it. So as I say, you don't ever get to switch off, and that is a perk and a massive plus point, but also a challenge of the job, because you don't switch off from it ever. No. You just don't.
And that's, I think, what I've found hard during this time. So even though I'm not sort of physically working at the moment for the company that I work for, my mind is still constantly going, which is why I want to do things like this. And I did a tutorial video the other day, because you feel like you want something to do with that creative sort of energy, I guess.
I can give you loads to do.
Yeah, send some stuff over. I can't just sit and watch Disney Plus.
No.
Promotion for Disney Plus.
And other channels also.
And play with toys all day. I can't do it. I feel the need to do something productive.
And that's exactly it. I mean, as much as it's been difficult getting up at 4 a.m. or whatever to get my bits and pieces done, I do feel accomplished before the day's even started. It's about using and continuing to use that side of your brain as well. And I think that's why, if people have been furloughed, this is a great opportunity. And I keep saying this to a lot of people via my own job. So clients that currently aren't able to work, use it as a time to upskill. Use it as a time to explore new channels and explore other ways that when we get back to normal, you can provide the best offering that you can. Then it's not time wasted at all. There's so much out there to investigate, so much out there to look into, and so much free training and so many free resources that we'd be foolish to not be using this opportunity to get the best out of them. Because come sort of June, hopefully July, we'll be begging for that opportunity to have additional time to immerse ourselves in the things that we're passionate about. So, you know, I would love to currently have more time to be able to dedicate to upskilling myself and also upskilling my team and my clients.
Yeah.
And, you know, that will come with time, hopefully, because things will calm down. Because on the flip side, my job role has ramped up tenfold since the coronavirus pandemic because of the support we're having to give to our clients. So, one day maybe I'll be able to immerse myself properly in upskilling myself in something. I'll be making my own podcast, maybe.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting way of looking at it, and it's a good way to look at it as actually we may not ever get this time again.
No.
Where we're and many of us and a lot of us are going to work. My wife she's similar to you. Her role has ramped up because she works for the NHS in the public health team. So they've all been kind of moved off of their normal work and onto one of the community hubs where they're making food parcels for vulnerable people and things. So some people's job, like you guys, has gone even crazier than usual. Yeah. But a lot of us have got this time that we'll probably never have to be able to look at training courses and upskilling and doing things like this and creating content that will help people. Oh, have I lost you? No, you're right. You froze. Yeah. You're back.
You were saying upskilling.
Yeah, so I think that's a good way to look at it in terms of use this time valuably. Spend your time with family and do everything you need to do, and when it comes to that. But yeah, I started writing a list of keeping a spreadsheet of courses that I wanted to look into, and it started off, you know, as 3 or 4 courses. Okay, great, they're free, that's fine. And then now that list is sort of 25, 30 courses long, and I'm never going to physically have the time to do it. But
well, you might. It depends how long this goes on.
Oh, yeah. If this lasts a year, then I might do. But yeah, I think that also helps. Maybe you see this as more of a positive thing rather than this has completely turned my life upside down. Actually, how can I use this time to benefit me and benefit my company when I return and that kind of thing?
Yeah, and I'd say, you know, unlike a lot of other professions where you have to do your professional development in very kind of restricted and conforming arenas or with certain course providers, we have the luxury of having so much information online that is free to consume.
Yeah.
That we'd be foolish to not be making the best of it at the moment, and even, you know, like you're doing, contributing to it as well. So that's another luxury of working in marketing, is that things move so fast. There's no definite right or wrong way of doing anything, but the more information that you can consume and the more you can be informed about what's available and how to get the best out of it, the better outcome you're going to have.
Yeah. So what would you say, what motivates you? I guess you've covered this a bit, but what would you say motivates you as a marketer?
I guess never sitting on my hands and not developing.
Yeah. There's
so much. I think it's in part down to a fear of getting left behind as well, particularly in the digital space. Yeah. I think if you spend too long not applying your knowledge and not exploring new channels, there is a real risk that you could end up left a bit astray, because things are changing. You know, there's no secret. You know, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, constantly changing their interface,
TikTok.
Constantly, and new emerging exciting channels like TikTok, which I hear all the cool kids are doing. My son's doing. I'm and you. I know you're on TikTok. And beyond, you know, there's so much out there, and it's about being able to continually upskill, and be able to continually upskill and be proactive about that process as well. Don't become comfortable with your own current skill set, because it will need to change for you to be able to compete and keep up with not only other companies but other people within your team.
Yeah.
So
these youngsters, young. I mean, we're getting up there now. We're mid-30s nearly, and even so, I did my CIM digital marketing diploma in 2013, and actually that time a lot has changed since 2013, and so that's why it's going to be good to do some of these courses to kind of top up my digital knowledge. But yeah, everything's moving so quickly.
Yeah.
And it's just keeping up is
but it's not getting overwhelmed by it as well.
Yeah.
It could be quite enveloping if you looked at it all and thought, oh my God, where do I begin? But it's about also having the luxury of being able to apply that knowledge. And even if it's just experimenting and creating little test campaigns, it's putting that knowledge into practice. You can read as many blogs as you like, but until you actually get down and do it, it's all just kind of stagnant knowledge. So it's being able to be agile enough and proactive enough to have a go as well.
Yeah. How have you found, so you mentioned earlier about the kind of the transition to being a marketer to then sort of being a marketing director and leading a team. How have you found the whole leadership side, as you've sort of seen both sides, I guess, being part of a team but then also leading a team?
A lot of what I do is fairly autonomous, so it's about having ownership of my own workload more than anything, because if I have a strong ownership of what I'm doing, I can then have that attitude cascade out to my team members. So I think it's about trying to balance a level of understanding of kind of their personal circumstances along with a need to get stuff done, because particularly at the moment it's quite challenging to manage people remotely.
Definitely.
And I think there's a lot of trust involved, and I do trust them, and I know that they're working because I know that the work needs to be done. But day to day, I don't like to micromanage. I find that it massively impinges on people's ability to be creative. I think if you crush people by being kind of too observant of every little thing they do, they won't have the confidence to make suggestions, and they won't have the confidence to apply their own creativity. So I think to get the best from your team, you need to first give them the freedom to apply their own skills, obviously with guidance and mentorship. But secondly, you need to lead by example. So I always address my own workload first to make sure that everything I have is within my remit. And then I look outside of that and think, okay, so I'm okay. I've got plenty to be getting on with. Everything that I'm doing is happening over the course of the next 1 week, 2 week. I will then share that with my team so they have an understanding of the overarching workload that's going on. And once they understand how my workload's looking, they'll appreciate some of the bits that will overspill into their workload as well. So it's about being quite transparent about what's going on as well, making sure that they know what's coming up, making sure they know where we're underperforming and where we're doing well, and giving guidance on how we could do things better. So I do, I enjoy it, but as I say, at the moment, it's quite challenging.
Yeah, this is a situation that you, as a manager, you would not ask for, to have to kind of manage people from distance or remotely. Not so much even the sort of trust thing, but just because you lose a bit of the team dynamic that you get in person, and being able to get in the same room and
it's that interaction, isn't it? It's that creative process that's a challenge remotely. It's not impossible, but it's not the same.
I found, so when I first started kind of managing, I found it hard to let things go. I guess the whole sort of keeping things that you want to work on, and because you think it's your idea, or you just know how you work, and actually forcing myself to kind of delegate to others to help them was a big challenge, I think, because for sort of 5-6 years or whatever it was, I'd been used to kind of keeping it all to myself and proving myself to others, proving what marketing can do. Then all of a sudden, okay, actually no, my job is to delegate this to other people. Did you find that same sort of struggle initially?
Yeah, I think again it comes with time, doesn't it? And knowing not to sweat the small stuff, I think, and choosing to pick your battles. I think you have to be able to get the best out of people. You have to be able to give them opportunity.
So so let's get to the real nitty gritty, the coronavirus situation. Mm-hmm. How do you think the current kind of world situation is impacting marketing? We've discussed sort of how people are using their messaging and how they're having to maybe make a switch to sort of more authentic, helpful content rather than just sell. But how would you say it's kind of impacting marketers specifically?
I think it's forcing us all to be a lot more creative with, and a lot more considered with how we're talking to people. I think even the most robust companies with the most nailed down style guides and content guides are having to branch out from those now, because the arena that we're working in is so incredibly unique.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a huge shift in the way that we work even after this, with further emphasis on connecting digitally with people. And I think that we're all going to have to embrace that. You know, it's no secret that we're all a bit zoomed out at the moment, but that will continue to be a way of meeting.
Other systems are available.
Other systems are, of course, available. But, you know, what I'm trying to say, I suppose, is that whilst this is considered a temporary shift in how we work, I can envisage a lot of these new adopted ways of working continuing, because they are more convenient, they are more flexible. And I think the challenge from a marketing perspective is to continue to keep the emphasis on the importance, like I said earlier, of that face-to-face or even just voice interaction, to gather feedback from people, to make connections with people. I would like to think that everybody is being extremely considered in the way that they are broaching their messaging and their communications at the moment. And I would hope that that's an ethos and a way of working that people will continue to adopt, because I think we can become quite slapdash and quite assuming about our messaging if we're doing it day in and day out for a particular brand or product.
Yeah.
And this will hopefully make us consider the human element in more detail, consider the impact of our words, and consider the longer lasting kind of fallout from what we're saying to people, whether it will put a greater emphasis on families and how people interact, not just as individual consumers, but as family units. I don't know. And I don't know whether there'll be a shift in the types of products and the way those are promoted, particularly online, after this as well.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a really interesting time to look at how the digital space in particular evolves during and after the pandemic. But from my perspective, it's more fascinating to think about how this impacts on how we are delivering messaging, how much attention we're paying to our messaging, and how we're seeing that through with a whole kind of revamp and relook at how we're talking to people in general. Because people have now, I do feel that the human element is now massively ramped up and emphasised. There is a person on the other end of that campaign. And I think that we were probably close to, if not there, with losing that, with the amount of data and automation at our disposal. It's actually quite nice to rein it back in and think very, very carefully about the impact of our messaging and how that impacts not only on how our brand is envisaged, but how that brand sits in the wider scheme of everything that's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the human element, you're right, the whole humanity part of marketing is going to need to be a big focus. I think we're not going to be able to just see people as a number on a spreadsheet anymore, I don't think, because everybody's had to think about their own personal situation and their health and their family and their money, where their money's coming from, and everything has kind of flipped in importance. So I think maybe people have just been made to sort of take stock of what is important now.
Yeah.
And it's made me think about purchases I'm making, even though I'm purchasing loads of more toys because we've got the toddler home.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's made me think about buying things for my, you can see some nice toys in the background.
Oh, this room looks like a department store at Smith's, honestly. It's
And it's because normally they'd go to nursery or parents or whatever, and they're just home 24/7. So I guess my toy purchases have gone up, but my purchases for myself have come down because it makes you question your future, I guess, and your career, and everything. Hopefully, will be fine 2 or 3 months from now. But I imagine that's happening all over the world.
Yeah.
And so you can't necessarily, and I've seen some companies do this, and it's kind of annoying, and it's not the way to do things. Is my inbox is full of like, oh, coronavirus is affecting us all. Here's 20% discount off some shoes, and you think like, no, now
I'm not going out. I don't need shoes.
No, I don't need clothes. I don't need shoes.
No.
But you can see some companies are trying to sort of capitalize on the situation, and I think after all this is done, people are going to remember the companies like that, and And also, there's so many I've seen on LinkedIn, so many recruitment companies, especially, just got rid of their staff within a week of all of this happening, before the furlough or anything like that was even announced. And I think the way that companies communicate and handle themselves in terms of their brand and their messaging is going to be remembered. But I think also the way companies have treated the staff is going to be remembered.
Yeah, I mean, this is something we've said to our clients, is that whilst obviously there may not be the money as available to dedicate to their marketing and to their membership services, if we can add value across the board all the time, they will remember us. If we can put pauses on membership fees, or we can provide additional assets free of charge for them to use on their social channels, or email marketing tips, or create some online resources for them to go to as free membership tools, they will come back to us, and they will come back to us with open arms, and they will bring people. If we force them into a corner to spend on their membership because they feel that they'll lose it if they don't, and if we force them to strip back their resources on a financial basis, they will run. Yeah. And that's, the approach that we've taken. I think how a lot of businesses and how a lot of marketeers conduct themselves during this time will define how they're viewed by their consumer or their marketplace for many, many years. So, I know that there are certain brands and certain products that I've been approached by online in a faceless and kind of almost thoughtless means that I will now never buy from.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, there are companies that have donated money, that have donated profits to the NHS fund, that are forming, huge campaigns based on sales that will go entirely into that pot, that I will continue to advocate now, that I didn't even know about. So it's about being tactical and strategic, but also ethical.
I think Brewdog are going to come out of this quite well, because they pretty early on said, we're just going to be manufacturing hand sanitizer for the NHS, and that, and I think they even got mentioned in one of the government updates. So I think, companies like that who, I guess, and Joe Wicks, the people that are doing a good deed and what could be seen as a selfless act, actually it's promoting them very well. So they're managing to get some good promotion without having to promote themselves.
And it's not really costing them. Joe Wicks is an interesting one, because I'm seeing a lot of kind of influencers or, people of higher, larger status on social media.
Yeah.
Very much taking, and you can see it as a marketer, a very tactical approach to how they're broaching the subject of the coronavirus. And you can see their long game, and that they've probably got a team of advisors. But actually, in doing so, so many of them have remained so authentic and believable that I'll continue to follow them and long after. So I also believe that it will form the sorts of partnerships that they will then take on after this as well.
Yeah.
So the sort of, it's going to be very divisive. The sort of companies that have chosen one route will attract the wrong influencers, will attract the wrong customer, and attract the wrong attention. Whereas those that are going down the supportive, positive, selfless, well, there's no such thing, but, less selfish approach will come out smelling of roses and will continue to rise in popularity. So you'll see groupings of different types of company, and I'm not going to name and shame any in particular, and I'm not going to praise any in particular. And it's still not too late for those that are conducting themselves in one particular way to not change their methods now. Yeah. Because we're in this for a while, and it's a great opportunity for people to really connect with their user and connect with their members and connect with their consumer. An untold opportunity, in fact. Even if you are marketing something that can only be sold in stores, now is the perfect opportunity to refine your messaging, to understand your customer, and to, remain visible. Because if you either go off the radar or you go too far down a kind of desperate and panicked tangent about your lack of sales, people won't come back, because that isn't on everybody's radar at the moment. People are dying. We don't care if you're not selling enough trainers, but if you tell us how, once everything's back to normal, or how in the interim you're helping support the cause, we will 100% buy from you when the time is right.
Yeah. And I almost feel bad for some marketers out there that are having to do these kind of flash discount because of the virus type thing, because they've probably just got managers. What is that? Is that a person?
That's a person and a
Oh,
baby
wow.
on a trike in the background. I think
See,
he's
we've just had
run out of things to entertain him upstairs, so he's taking him outside on a trike.
we've just had that moment then, like the BBC guy that was doing that call that time, and his child
We did.
came in the background.
It was special.
Perfect.
It reminds me of my real calling in life. You don't get an hour without some kind of interruption.
No, we've managed to get away with about an hour 23 minutes.
Very well.
Yeah, I feel bad because I imagine that those marketers are being told by the CEO or the directors, we need to pump out some stuff. We need to get people
we
hitting
need
our
leads,
website.
we need sales, we need hits.
Yeah, and there's people out there that are going to be
time.
struggling with that. Okay, so just to finish, what one thing or a couple of things would you recommend to other marketers to help them navigate the marketing minefield? So it could be a tool, could be a platform, could be a course, could be like a TED talk, anything that you regularly use or you have used in the past.
Actually, I'm going to go a bit left of the middle and say it's more about trying to remind yourself that you are extremely important. I think you can use all the tools in the world, but you can very quickly lose sight through external factors or through challenging conditions of the important role that you play in not just your team as a marketer, but in your company. I think it's, if you take stock from time to time and have a look at the things that you've accomplished, and then also have a think about the things that you would like to accomplish. We have the luxury as marketers having almost the world at our disposal. We can explore whatever we want to explore, provided we get the right opportunity. And you're only going to find that opportunity for yourself if you have the confidence in your own skill set. Yeah. So it would be more about learning from others, taking on that kind of mentorship from senior members of your team, trying to immerse yourself in as much as possible. This kind of always on mentality applies to our own job as well, to be able to absorb and critique everything and consider, how would I do it differently? If I were approaching this campaign, where would I like to see it? And then trying to kind of immerse yourself in your own industry as well to gain the best understanding that you can, because we all have very specific roles. We all have very specific calling. And it's about gaining the strongest understanding and the most powerful knowledge that you can of your own position and what you're trying to achieve within your industry to get the best out of it and the best outcomes. Because it's only that way that you'll get recognised and that you'll develop and you'll grow and you'll get those opportunities to go further afield. You could be marketing the most boring, in your mind, the most boring platform or product or concept. But to somebody somewhere, that is what keeps them going every single day. And it's about remembering that whilst you may not find it interesting, it's in providing an important and vital service to somebody that needs to know about that product for a very good reason. So the sexier jobs will come, but if you're just starting out, it's about gaining as much experience and as strong an understanding of your audience as possible. I'd say that.
And actually, those more boring, industries, actually, that can be a good challenge to try and find a way to make it sexier or cooler or funnier or quirkier or whatever. I worked in the shipping industry for a short time, and that is quite hard to get excited about. But I did see it as a challenge to try and break the normal type of messaging that shipping companies put out there. So I think you're right. I think you can, if you want to get into the industry, be very open-minded about where you work, what kind of sector you work in, and actually try and find ways to put your stamp on the industry that you're working in.
Because what I would say is actually, and this might be a generalization, but you're probably more likely to get that lucky break if you're working in a niche where you're going to be more recognizable than if you're working as big as part of a bigger, larger consumer organization. I hate him so much.
Definitely going to be using this video on social media.
Great, amazing. It's to, when you're applying for that first role, or when you're looking to move on from an assistant to an exec, or whatever that career progression is, is to not look down your nose at those opportunities that don't necessarily look as kind of sexy or appealing. Your portfolio will come, and it will come with time. And actually, having worked largely across the business-to-business sector in recent years, some may turn their nose up at that and think, oh, that sounds really dull. I want to work in consumer marketing. I want to market, I don't know, makeup or trainers or whatever it is. And that's fine. But you have to be accepting that you need a broad skill set. And to do that, you may have to work in those roles that may not have that immediate appeal. Because most employers will see past your portfolio. They'll see past the fact that you may not necessarily have big brand names. But if you're immersed and you're passionate about what you do, that will immediately come across. Yeah,
definitely. Well, thank you. I feel like I need to let you go and hop outside and play with the kids. I need to go and watch Moana for the 50th time this week. So thank you for answering all my questions and all my little tangents. Depending how long this goes on, we might get you back on and this will become like a 10-part interview.
Cool. For that. I could talk about it all day. I could, but I can't
that's
because
good.
I've got children.
No, but this hopefully children. This has given us both an outlet. One of them was walking back and forth.
Literally, one of them 6'5",
tall child. This has given us somewhere to kind of get our marketing thoughts out of our brain.
Yeah,
so it's been good.
Nice. It's nice. Well, let me know if you need it again. It's fine.
Cool. Right, let me say bye officially and then I'll stop recording. Thank you for coming on to this first episode of the Marketing Minefield Podcast. Would you recommend that people download it and rate it 5 stars on the iTunes store?
Of course I would. But I'd also recommend that if you're interested in being a part of it, that you contact Michael.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I'm open to all sorts of guests from the marketing world. And the marketing world is quite vast. So I'm thinking of hitting up graphic designers, copywriters, programmers, web developers even that I know of, or
good idea.
I'm open.
Good idea. Well, let me know.
Cool. Well,
I'll be staying tuned. Make sure you edit out, the crap.
No, there's no crap. It's all gold. Amazing. All marketing gold.
Thank you. See you later.